from some smoke. Doesn't get prettier than that.
I don't remember it.
And a one-hand effort by Harris. And Harris stabs it.
Yo, yo, yo. Another season in the books, college football. Lots of games, lots of bowl games, lots of things happening. Got my buddy Bruce back all season long grinding for you at Run Pure. As everyone knows, weeknights. I can't even count how many slates, as these other two guests know too, but millions of slates. We are at the end. And also, two of my longtime buddies, met them through college football probably at some point back in the day, but from Establish the Run. PSU fans, Sean Newsom, Alex, Fear My Turtle, two of the best niche sports people I've ever known, and two of my buddies. So three of the best college football minds, plus me to make fun of donkeys like Sean, wearing a Penn State hat, which deserves enough. And then the first thing he tells me is he's not playing the slate tonight, a national championship slate, maybe one of the most ridiculous things I've ever heard. So let me bring him in first. Mr. PSU fans too. Sean, what's going on, man?
Yeah, I mean, season ended like 11 days ago. I don't know what you're talking about. This might be a game tonight. I don't know. I won't watch a snap of it. But
there's a Penn State game. It's a basketball game.
Yeah, Penn State's still playing tonight, Tony. I don't know what you're talking about. We got to run to March Madness going, So you got to watch the games that are of importance. And then tonight's college football game just doesn't have that level.
What's the verdict from the game now? You obviously thought you could win that game. What happened? Penn State, Notre Dame, close game most of the game. You knocked the quarterback out in the first half, came back concussed. You got beat by a concussed quarterback in the second half. What was your verdict from inside the Penn State universe?
Yeah, what's funny about that is I had like three Penn State buddies like, no, this dude's concussed. He's no way he's come back. Like 2 weeks before, we literally saw a guy like fall over and vomit on the field and came back. I'm like, oh no, he's gonna be back. Don't you worry. Yeah, lots of depression going on. It was pretty gutting game to watch. Like Penn State should have been up like 3 scores at halftime. Wasn't. So at that point, you're like, yep, this game's over. There's no shot they're gonna win this. And then literally just it was brutal because they dominated the offensive line, they dominated the defensive line, they dominated both sides coaching wise, and they still lost. So lost
coaching wise. You think you dominated coaching wise too?
Yeah, I think that we ran circles around Notre Dame in the game coaching wise, and that comes after the Ohio State game early in the year when Penn State was just shit on coaching wise. But like Penn State dominated that game. I haven't seen Penn State's offense look that good in terms of like the offensive line was just moving them the whole game. They just literally. Everyone, I had to sit there. So Penn State Twitter, for those that don't follow any Penn State Twitter, basically blames Franklin for anything. If like someone shits themselves, it's Franklin's fault. It doesn't matter how bad it was. So I had to sit there and like the entire Penn State Twitter was like calling for Franklin's head after the game. And I'm just sitting there. I'm like, I like Drew Aller a lot. I think he's great. But you could not have had a worse game if you gave him 100 opportunities in that game. What do you want Franklin to do? Like, oh, hey, here's a 60-yard uncontested wheel route for a touchdown that the quarterback misses. Oh, hey, here's a walk-in 2-yard passing touchdown where no one's within 10 yards. Like, I don't see people blaming Harbaugh for Mark Andrews dropping the ball yesterday. So
that was brutal.
Lots of depression.
That was Lamar's fault. What do you mean? Lamar can't win in the playoffs.
Lots of depression going on in the Penn State Twitter sphere. But then literally, like, it's even worse because everybody's returning. So Penn State should probably be the top ranked team in the nation next year, which is just
tight end back too.
What
is the tight end back too?
No, he's literally like the only person returning.
Got defensive monsters back.
He's not. But they have other guys.
They're your best guys, but
they're back. Yeah, they return so much. They return like 50.
They're not going to be top 5.
Those were their only 2 good guys.
No, their defense has a lot of good players on it. Aller's good. They're returning both running backs who are both studs. They brought in 2 receivers who literally can't be worse than what they had this year. So,
It was crazy too, that concussion. I mean, no kid's coming out with a concussion in college. Like, who even? They don't have like independent guys like the NFL, do they?
I think they do, but you
heavily influenced guys though that have no balls to actually say you're not going back in that game.
If you can avoid getting up and stumbling around, you're good to go.
He was almost. There was a stumble. There was like a little bit of a stumble.
But like his
guy like hugged him. His guy like hugged him. He's like, "No, dude, just don't move for a bit." And then he was like, "All right, now I'm good." So like they basically avoided the like clear you can't come back in the game stuff. And once you avoid that, like just give him a series, and then he'll be good to go. And that's pretty much what happened.
Also, I've always wondered why teams aren't sharper with stuff like that. Like if you see him go down like that, just literally hold him down there for a minute.
Yeah.
Let him get his bearings. And the same thing with like when you're out of timeouts and it's not super late where you get the 10-second runoff, but it's a big play. Just go down. Have one of your dudes just fake it and go down and buy some time for the coaching staff to draw something up. That's got to be the next wave that someone does stuff like that. But Alex, what's up, man? I know you got to deal with this donkey all year, so I watch a decent amount of your guys' shows. I see what you got to put up with. It's a long year. You got to be happy that you're done with his whining. Even the week he won like 50K or more, he's in there still whining about how he should have won the night slate or the afternoon slate or this guy. He lost the cash game. I mean, I don't know how you do it all year. What's going on, man?
I mean, nobody runs worse than Sean, so that's why I have this nice brick wall I can just bang my head up against all year. So, yeah, no, doing good. Looking forward to the offseason. I don't know about you all, but we're getting a little bit older. Each college football season hits a little bit harder, so I'm ready for the offseason, and we'll miss it probably in a couple months. But yeah, it's a long year, interesting year. Definitely, college sports is a lot different now than it was 2 or 3 years. So still adjusting with that, but it's been interesting. I definitely have liked the playoff.
Yeah, I've enjoyed the playoff too. Yeah. And lastly, my man Bruce, like I said, in the Discord, literally the whole college football season. I know these two too. I'm not in there as much as these three, but all three of them in there constantly. But I see Bruce day to day, just in there every freaking max slate. People love it. So much good info. Bruce, last night of the year, Texas isn't in. So I got Penn State. I got Texas over here. What's the remains of that Texas carnage?
Yeah, it's rough. We have a lot of guys transfer out too. I mean, like secondary guys, like not like guys that are going to make a big difference next year. But yeah, it's rough way to go out. I'm kind of glad Ewers is gone and get to see Arch. So.
Why in the world does this dude think he's going to be a 3rd or 4th round pick, right? Tops? Or am I wrong? He sucks.
Yeah, I think he could go second, but I don't see him going first. Yeah, I don't see him going first at all. I mean, he's probably going to be good at the combine because he's got an arm. But yeah,
is that why people? I just watch him and I just don't see it. Like,
yeah,
I just don't see it. He just got a real strong arm, kind of like the Levis, where everyone loved Levis, and I'm like, the dude sucks, and now he still sucks. Like, it's just
the problem. He hasn't gotten any better in like 2 or 3 years. Like, I thought he was going to progress. He just didn't.
He was one I just never saw. Like, because being from Kentucky, I just watched him, and I'm just like, if you can't do good in college, how are you going to get better? Like, I don't get that, I guess. But
the issue is now anytime someone fits that mold, they just point to Josh Allen.
Just every single time.
It's like, all right, you sucked in college. It's like, well, Josh Allen was terrible in college. No, I mean, I've been on the Ewers is like dog shit train since day one. Alex was on the Ewers should be a Heisman candidate since day one. So I was hard on the Texas is not going to win a title unless Ewers gets benched train. And I feel pretty confident in that. But like Bruce said, like, he has all the measurables. He's going to look awesome at the combine because you know what doesn't happen at the combine? Actually having to make decisions and step into the pocket and like do things intelligently. So like people are going to love him. I agree with Bruce. I think he's like probably going to go in the 2nd to 3rd. A lot of that is because the other options are horrific. Yeah. So it's just sort of what it is. But dude stinks. Someone's going to take him and be like, ugh, this is brutal.
Yeah, he just doesn't make a ton of mistakes. And you know, he's got like the best quarterback job in football being in this offense. And it's just hard to watch. It just takes too long in the pocket. Just slow. had the same feeling about Shane Buechele when he was here too, before he transferred to SMU.
That guy I didn't even know he was at Texas.
Yeah. He was just too slow at processing, man. It's hard to watch pocket presence. It's just bad. But yeah, good to have a backup option like Arch in there, and looking forward to him next year running the offense, running a little bit, which I love to see. We love those running quarterbacks.
Got to be able to move a little bit in college too. I mean, one of the things I just listening to Sean and Alex shows all year too. Like when you looked at yours, I'm not saying you should box log watch everything, but quarterbacks, like when you pull up a guy that's always 8, 9K or whatever, 7, high 7, and you see 15, 12, 13, it's like, what in the world is going on? I know they run the ball a lot. I'm not saying they don't run it and didn't have good running backs, but you're in college. Like, you can't be putting up single or double digit 15, 16 point games consistently. It's just, I don't know.
He didn't crack 22 until I think the playoff, where he had one game that cracked like 22, which like in that offense, if you're not cracking 22, like
with just weapons everywhere, like
everywhere,
and playing some matchups that weren't. I mean, they didn't play a tough schedule.
No,
a ton of their matchups were easy matchups on top of it. So
yeah, it was. You just got to have a better. It's like one of those things. Like you watch the box scores and you're like, this is incredibly mediocre, and then you watch the games and you're like, holy shit, they're way better if he gets injured. Like that's just not a guy. I'm like, yes.
And Arch always did look pretty good to me when he goes in. I know it's more of a running thing when he'd go in, but he always looked better to me too. I just didn't. In practice, he must have just been way better in practice is the only thing that makes sense to me.
Like Sarkisian's offense is really complicated for a college quarterback. I don't think like the Manning thing is a guaranteed smash this upcoming season, but like I think he's a Heisman favorite maybe in 2 years.
He probably is next year too because the options are so limited.
Yeah, I just don't see him actually putting up the numbers next year, but maybe I'll be wrong. It'd be exciting if Texas has a fun quarterback for DFS again. The biggest problem is they've been terrible with quarterback pricing the last 2 seasons. Like
terrible.
If viewers would drop down to like 6K, I would definitely get tempted. But this year it was easy just to avoid
6K though.
Like you can think about it. The quarterback pricing is just so bad the last 2 seasons. It's really frustrating.
Yeah, everybody should be priced to where you could play them. And you're right. When you see those box scores and it's 15, 14, it's literally impossible even to get contrarian. I love getting contrarian and playing stuff like that. You couldn't even do that because there's just literally no way he's getting there. I mean, literally no way.
I wonder if some of the quarterback pricing is to try to incentivize people to play non-quarterback and super flex, but that's not,
which is dumb anyways. Let them play quarterbacks in there. There's still always people that we get. I'm sure you guys in the Discord too, our Discord, every slate the whole year. Can we play someone else in the super flex? Can we play someone all year long? I'm sure you guys get the same thing. There's no way. And I love that people will still do it. I mean, sure, there's some slates that quarterback is really tough to click 2 of them, but still, I mean, I always do. I know Alex does.
There were more opportunities this year to not play 2 quarterbacks than there ever
because of the pricing you guys are talking about, where I mean it makes it even tougher.
Yeah, it's like anybody that was like an absolute statue that had a ceiling of like 28, they were like 9K every time. And it's like you said, I literally can't play this guy because his ceiling blows, his floor blows, and he's 9K. Like so every slate you look at, and it's like a 12-game main slate. They literally remove a third of the quarterbacks because they make them 9K as like big statues that don't throw the ball enough. It's like, what am I even supposed to do here? Like the quarterback pool is like 6 every slate. It's like, this is so stupid.
And you got like 4 guys every time that were priced even a little cheaper that could run and put up big points. And it's like, there's no freaking way. But let's talk about tonight's game before we get too many people bored of the past. Monster prize pools on DraftKings. What, 500K in the main, a 555, a bunch of single entries, just like always. But as we get into the positions, what we're going to talk about is how we're going to get different, because with the way the pricing, as we dive into it, it's going to be really hard to get off some of the obvious plays. And obviously you got the good guys at the top too. So we'll hop in and let me see if I can pull up this screen share without totally looking like an idiot. There we go. See, that's preparation. They call that preparation, boys. We had some issues pre-show, but So since it's the last game too, I'll just put all the projections up. I got Saber Sim, Run Pure, and then these are their projections over to establish the run. So you got kind of 3 numbers. We'll just take it position by position to start, just to keep it simple. So obviously everybody's going to want to play quarterbacks. Bruce, I'll start with you with quarterback. What do you think of these 2 guys? Is there any way you can fade them? Just normal chatter, because obviously everyone's going to want to play these guys. Anything stick out to you, Bruce, with these 2?
Well, I think if we saw last week, we saw Penn State move the ball on the ground pretty well against this Notre Dame defense. Who's, when you look at their schedule, they haven't really played a whole bunch of good offensive teams. So, I think Ohio State moves the football here. So, if they run the ball quite a bit, could see fading a guy like Will Howard, who does run just a little bit, about 5.5 rushes per game, and is pretty quick. And you have to throw on top of that Notre Dame does like to run like a man defense. So, he's going to have defensive backs with their backs to him, and he can run a little bit on that too. So, but he's someone to look at. If you're playing maybe two Ohio State running backs in your lineup, you could do that, I think. And then Riley Leonard running the ball about 11 times per game, has 16 rushing touchdowns. But this Ohio State defense is pretty solid. Only giving up 13 points per game to quarterbacks. This is a really tough defense. So kind of lean towards fading Leonard if I'm going to fade one. But you can look at it if you do play 2 Ohio State running backs.
Yeah, as we start going through these positions, like, we're going to have to find different strategies, especially if you're playing the main. What is it, $20, $500K prize pool? You can do a lot of different leverage things where you can onslaught it. You can be heavier Notre Dame. Like you said, you can play both running backs from Ohio State instead of Howard, hope they run the ball a ton. So many ways you can go. But, Alex, what do you see at the quarterback? Anything crazy?
Yeah, I think either are fadeable. I don't know about fading both. And I tend to think that Leonard has a bit more upside in this type of game if things go right for Notre Dame than if things go right for Ohio State. Just because if Howard has a good game, I think there's a higher likelihood that one of his receivers would be more optimal captain as compared to Leonard, where Leonard's probably getting there more on the ground and spreading things out through multiple pass catchers. So I think Howard's probably a slightly better play in a vacuum, but for the purposes of this slate, I prefer probably pushing Leonard a little bit heavier relative to the field.
Sean, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the thing with Leonard is, like, he just is going to bash his head into the line 15 to 20 times, which when I'm sitting there and I'm looking at this slate and I'm like, all right, I think this Bruce is 100% correct. Like, if you look through the Ohio State logs in every single Ohio State game on the year, Ohio State has given up absolutely nothing every single game except for like the Oregon game. Every other game, like, nobody has done anything against them. But when you're sitting here looking at a single game slate, you look at Notre Dame and it's like, all right, literally everyone on this team is a pile of shit. Well, if everybody's a pile of shit on this team, even if Leonard puts up 15, he very well might end up in optimal because no one else on that team is going to put up 15. So I think Leonard is more likely probably in the optimal than even Howard, even if I think Ohio State's going to win, just because so much more of the offense comes through them. Yeah, they could run Jeremiah Love, and like, I don't see how that can work here, but maybe they could run Jeremiah Love and that would make it not happen. But otherwise, like, it's either going to be like a 5-man with Leonard, or it's going to be like just a full stack of like Ohio State guys. But like Bruce said, like, I think Ohio State, based on what I saw at the Penn State game, Penn State just absolutely shit on this Notre Dame defensive line. Even though the Notre Dame defensive line's numbers are very, very appealing defensively, I don't think it's actually that accurate in this type of game against a good team like this. So for me, I think that like Leonard is probably going to get there. Ohio State, like, if they have the success running the ball like Penn State did, like, it could really neuter Howard to some extent. Whereas, like, at least with Leonard, you're like, this dude's going to pound the ball 15 times up his center's ass, and he's going to throw the ball 20, 25 times. So I think Leonard is just a slightly more appealing play to me than Howard. But obviously I kind of come away from this game thinking Ohio State's going to smash them because, I mean, like I said at the beginning of the show, I thought Penn State outplayed them. And I think Ohio State's a much, much better version than Penn State in this game. So if I thought Penn State outplayed them and it was a bad look for Notre Dame, I think this game's even worse, and I think it's in Ohio State's favor.
Yeah, I should have started with that anyways, like the predictions for the game, just because it impacts how we build in Showdown. And I saw the same thing you saw, where I thought Notre Dame, even though I was on Notre Dame and I got lucky to win it, I thought they just got owned for a majority of that game. A few blown plays, a few random things, interception at the end, just cost them. And I think Ohio State played their worst game versus Texas and snuck away too. And I kind of think both go the opposite direction tonight for a blowout, which means you got to build like that. Does anyone not like Ohio State tonight of you guys?
No.
All Ohio State, double digit plus.
Yeah, I don't think
I don't think double digit. I think the game is actually a pretty gross game, maybe a bit more cagey than we've come to expect in these like finals games where we get some points. But like this, the total is what, like mid 40s. Like I could easily
low.
Yeah, I could easily see this being like a fairly close game that Ohio State controls throughout, but they're only up like a touchdown. And like we know Notre Dame's going to bleed the clock. If Ohio State has some success running the ball, that could like hit their play count. I just don't expect tons of plays in this game. I don't think it'll get to a blowout level, but I'd say Ohio State plays comfortably from ahead.
Yeah, I would say Ohio State. I kind of just envision, like, I think Ohio State is going to play this game just like Penn State did, except they're not going to piss down their legs like Penn State did. So for me, like, I think Penn State should have won by 10 to 14 points against Notre Dame. I think Ohio State wins by like 10 points is probably how it goes.
That was kind of my thing, though. Like, how I could see it playing out for more points than people think is they just get a lead and force Notre Dame to get more aggressive, where they can't just run it up the middle with Leonard and take off and do all their conservative stuff because they're down and they got to open it up. But like you guys said, everyone that plays or the casuals tonight are naturally going to want to jam offensive guys. And no one likes to come in here and play an ugly game script where they run it and all that stuff. So you got a lot of leverage, right, Bruce? How do you see the score tonight, Bruce?
Yeah, I see it similar to these two guys. I see Ohio State kind of jumping out to a lead. You know, last week or 2 weeks ago, 10 days, whatever, however long ago it was when they played Texas. You know, they had a ton of penalties. I think Texas was lucky to be in that game late. To be honest, Ohio State just looks too good on offense. You know, you said it a couple weeks ago. You know, when they played that Michigan game, they finally. It kind of switched in Chip Kelly's mind that, hey, maybe we just can't run the football every play here. And, you know, they started going to their guys, you know, Jeremiah Smith and those guys. So I can see them scoring some points tonight. But I just, I think it's a gross game, probably in the 50s, low 50s, with Ohio State winning by 10 or so.
All righty. Last thing with just looking at the ownerships too. I didn't do anything crazy. No like crazy sims or anything built into this. Just looking at the ownerships as we go too. Like 50-something% in the flex, 19 for Howard. I don't totally. Riley Leonard's got to be higher than like 60 though, right?
He was about that in the Penn State show.
Really?
Yeah.
So you think that's pretty accurate then, 60?
Probably.
I think Howard's going to be higher owned than Leonard.
Same.
So you guys think this is pretty good, like 70 and 55, 50 or something?
Yeah, I think both will be like 60 to 70% owned combined ownership between like their captain and utility. So I think it's reasonable. Like I don't think that's like over or under like what they should realistically be.
I think we have 58 and 62. It's just tough to play both of them in a lot of lineups with wanting to play like the expensive skill guys from Ohio State also. So I think it holds.
So I think one of the things, especially with Sims these days and everyone using them, I still think one of the key things with the Showdown slate in the NFL too is just to have a few rules that like force stuff in and out and just get you in a slightly different path than just everyone that runs the same numbers runs the Sims. Like what, you guys like the rule one quarterback? Min one?
I wouldn't do that. The one rule I would do today is the only way I think you realistically get different to like make an impact is to have like one of the really cheap guys on both teams, whether it be like Jaden Thomas, Kazmarek, G. Scott, someone like that. I think that's the only way you're going to get super different. So like if I was making a rule for the slate, I would probably make it with like a min one of those guys. But the issue is like you give up a shitload of points, more so than you normally would. Like normal slates like this, like maybe give up 2 points. Tonight, you're literally giving up like 6 points to like play someone like that, which all it takes is for them to get a touchdown. But the issue is they price Carnell Tate way too cheap. Not to say he can't shit the bed, but they price him way too cheap. They price Mitchell Evans way too cheap. That it just makes these guys that are going to get like 2 targets pretty difficult to plug because you're going to get 2 targets and you probably got to get 8 to 10 points, which means you basically have to score a touchdown.
Yeah, my issue with the min one quarterback rule is I could just see an outcome where Henderson and Judkins smash and like Notre Dame just can't do anything offensively. And that would be a path where I think is pretty viable in this game, given that how we saw Penn State ran the ball. And we know Chip Kelly, if they get a lead and they're successful running, like they're fine just running the ball. And there's been games where Will Howard hasn't done super well in terms of scoring fantasy points. There was a lot of games early in the season where like he would salvage late, like they'd be up like 20 points in the fourth and like he'd throw 2 bombs to like get to 25 points. So I think there's plenty of paths for neither quarterback to like crack 15 and just like run over Notre Dame. It's probably unlikely. I'd say better chance there is one quarterback, but I just do see paths where you don't need either.
I still just think it's important what you guys are saying, though, because a lot of the people watching our show are probably going to enter between 1 and 5 entries tonight. And if you do that and you just go in and you play these obvious guys and you put in Tate, like if you play Tate and Evans together in the flex and you play the quarterbacks and you plug in another stud, I mean, you're going to literally have an enormous train of teams to where, and that's fine. Some people, everybody builds different. If you build 5 teams, maybe build 1 or 2 that is super chalky and you don't care about chopping, and then build 1 or 2 crazy ones where you pivot to a kicker or one of these cheaper guys like Sean was talking about, where you go down to like a Raritan or someone like that. But it's going to be the key to the slate just because of how obvious some of these builds are. Because like he said, with Tate and Evans, I mean, 32, 3K, big time ownerships. Even just pivoting though to like Williams and Greathouse down here, similar price range, 15% according to what I got, which doesn't mean it's dead accurate, but way less than those guys too. I kind of like that rule you were talking about where you maybe force one guy not named these 2 into your builds to where you're definitely going to give up projection, but there's nothing to say Tate can't get 3 fantasy points tonight and you just dust him with 1 touchdown that somehow somebody breaks deep or something. Yeah,
you're talking about like 2 of the last 3 games for Tate getting like 2 points. Like, and a lot of it depends on how Notre Dame plays defensively. Like, just I think they're going to mix up their defense, but as Bruce alluded to, like they're going to play a lot of man, especially relative to like last week Ohio State game. So yeah, there's ways to do that. You could do min 1 of the cheaper guys that are not chalk, or you could just like say like max 5 of the top 8 guys. It's just another way to force in somebody off the board. But like, that's why I'm having trouble committing to MME and the flagship is just like giving up so much projection on those lineups. I just don't know if it's worth it, but I'll certainly be firing in the 555.
Yeah. The issue is so Ohio State has played 6 good teams, aka teams that made the playoffs. 4 of those 6 games, Carnell Tate did not crack 3. This guy's going to be 70%. 4 of 6 games, he did not crack 3. Now, I'm not saying he's a bad play. I think he's the best cheap option on the slate outside of maybe Mitchell Evans. Like, but it's those 2. But like, he can shit the bed. We've seen it many times already this year. The issue we have is that like, it basically comes down to how Notre Dame decides to defend Jeremiah Smith and nothing to do with Carnell Tate. If they decide to bracket Jeremiah Smith, Carnell Tate is going to be in the optimal. Like, it's just going to happen. There's just no way it doesn't happen. If they decide not to bracket Jeremiah Smith, then Cardinal Tate has a real possibility to put up like 4 points and not be in the optimal. The issue I have too is, and I talked about this on our show, Jaden Greathouse just crushed Penn State. So much of it was off of a guy falling down, but he crushed him. Game log watchers are going to sit there and be like, oh man, this guy put up 22 against Penn State, and I'm going to pivot off a Cardinal Tate to him. So like, I think Greathouse is going to come in a lot higher owned than we're all anticipating because of that.
And that was Bo Collins being out like the whole game, who should be back. He says 100%.
Well, he sucks at 100% anyways. So
yeah, he's not good at 100.
His prop looks nice though. It's only 13 yards, I think, on DK.
Yeah,
so
like
that.
I think the Greathouse prop last week we had in our Discord, we had our props product. We had Greathouse at over 12.5, and we were like saying to ladder it. I think people laddered it up to like 70 yards.
Greathouse, and then they hit on that falling down.
Yeah, I know a few people in our Discord just because we said we're like Greathouse. Typically with Greathouse too is like a lot of his plays are big plays. It's like this dude catches it like very easily, can get there on one catch. And I think even without the bomb, I think he had like 4 for 40. So like he still laddered up a decent amount even without the big bomb. And then with the big bomb, he put up like 90 yards. He hit every ladder.
Yeah, I mean, he had 7 catches. Game log watchers are going to freaking love that. The problem is you look at the rest of the games, and he got a lot of 1s and 2s in there besides the last game, and everyone saw it. So that's why I'm curious, because like you got just extreme ownership on these guys, which is probably true because a lot of guys are just going to use projections tonight anyways and slam stuff in there. But the game log watchers, you got to think are going to like Greathouse just as much as some of those guys. So it's interesting if it comes more towards the me and the Sims. Maybe the Sims push some of this other stuff too as it goes. But
yeah, like I can't see like Cardinal Tate being like 70% owned and then Greathouse being 15 tonight. I can't see Greathouse being under like 30-35% owned tonight.
It's gotta be closer. I agree, because these are just like literally run naked though. These are just projections, nothing baked into it. So
yeah. I think our ownership on Greathouse is like 20. And it's just like, I look at it and like, right, we're talking about like looking at all of these options, and every option you look at, you're just like, yeah, the most likely pivot is a Greathouse. Because you're not like, oh, I'm trying to pivot off of Jeremiah Smith to like Judkins. You're like, oh, I'm going to pivot off of Cardinal Tate to the dude that put up like 27 last game.
Yeah, but the problem is the people who are going to play some Greathouse probably have tons of the chalk in their other lineups if they're doing like 150. So I don't think Greathouse gets above 30, but it could be higher than the 20 that we have. Also, with the Sims, do you think the Sims might have trouble picking up on the number of duplications on this kind of slate?
I think it's like impossible, but I'm definitely not the smartest with the Sims. I'll admit it, but it seems impossible.
It's tough to build like a good 150 set tonight. You have to really put in some time. So like I think that's why I'm going to focus more on like the hand build, the higher dollar stuff, because it's just easier to manage. But
I mean, you almost have to build a bunch of different sets too, like you're saying, where you go 20 of this type thing, 20 where you fade both quarterbacks, 20 where you play both, just a ton of different things, and just totally mix it up if you want to do it. But like you said, that takes a ton of freaking work.
Just to end up splitting it with like 200 other people and losing money on the slate. But I mean,
it's a bad price pool like structure, anyways.
Yeah, but I mean, you can do some crazy things. Like you could play like 2 1K guys that are barely going to see the field, and that's like the only way to get the unique combination of like 4 studs. So like
those are like the builds I like, because the random stuff happens too. What happens when one of those guys somehow houses one? Like you're just so massive. I'm willing to do that and get 0 back, take a little bit more of a chance to hit something big. Rather, because if you slam the chalk in there with those, like you said, 5 or 6 of those top guys, you're just gonna not win anything, even if it wins.
Like if you do an unconstrained 150 and put it in the flagship, there is literally 0 chance you're making money on this slate.
Like the optimal.
Like that lineup is going to be just piled on, right? Like it's just going to
look at that lineup too. If you play this tonight, you are freaking shopping with.
Yeah, like
I honestly think there could be 1,000 of those in the flagship.
Correct. So like I think a way, like if I was running a flat 180, or if I was like 150, I don't think necessarily completely avoiding like the duped lineups is the best path, because once you start avoiding them, you give up so much in terms of expectation. But what you can do is you can remove like the holy shit, this lineup's going to be duped 1,000 times and not run that lineup. Well, like you can get rid of like maybe the top 10 most duped lineups and not run those. But I also I do think that the rule, Tony's going to run this, guys. Tony's going to run 150, and he's going to use my rule with all these shitters with a min 1.
Yeah, and I'm going to taunt you when I win with your rule when you don't play.
Yeah, and he's going to taunt, and he's going to win because I'm not playing. That's just how it's going to work. But it does make sense.
I still refuse to believe you're not playing.
If I am depressed and not in the mood, I sit out and don't play. I don't need to
this guy is like fully unregistered from night slates after like at halftime of the main slate when things look bad, and then you talk to him the next day. He's like, "Oh, I won money."
I don't tilt. I don't see. I'm like the opposite, Tony. I don't tilt and chase my losses. I tilt, dereg everything, and go take a nap because I'm so depressed.
And then win money.
And then Alex is the push and then lose like shitloads and then be dark as shit the rest of the week.
It happens sometimes.
Alex is so like I tilt and bitch. Alex just disappears, Tony. Like you just like don't see him again till Wednesday, and then he shows back up like depressed as shit for the next week. By the time Sunday comes, I'm fine. I'm good. I get it all out Saturdays.
Oh, you got me. Let's move on to running back. Bruce, running back. I know you talked a little bit about it at quarterback, but by far the two guys are these two guys. Aeneas Williams last game was 1K, right? Was that what he was?
It was cheap, yeah.
And he was pretty good. He's got a big workload. I feel like he's kind of a game log guy too, just because he was pretty good last game and a lot of people liked him. But what do you think at running back? I mean, Jeremiah Love last game was pretty incredible for all things considered. I mean, jumping over guy, everything. I was pretty impressed with him with the injuries and everything. But what do you see overall at running back?
Yeah, I thought Love looked great in the second half. Just looked fresh. They must have gave him something at halftime. He just looked
gave him the goods.
Yeah, he looked really good. But yeah, you mentioned Aeneas Williams. The matchup is good. I think they got Sonny Styles, the Ohio State linebacker / safety, matched up on Jaden Blue last week, and Blue scored both those long touchdowns on him. So I think he's interesting. I don't think the ownership's going to be that crazy. It's still going to be up there, but from the game log watchers for sure. But he's a good receiver. That long catch he had last week was really good too. Just looks the part. I think if they're trailing in this game, he could have a solid game for the price. He was priced up a little bit at 4,200, which makes it a little bit tougher. But I think he's a good play for sure. Love's going to be pretty low owned. I've seen. So I think he's an interesting tournament play for sure. Just in case Notre Dame can run the football here. It doesn't. I don't think they will be able to, but he's more of an ownership play here. Not a lot of people are going to have him in their lineup. So I think he's a solid play. Henderson and Judkins are just two of the better plays. It's tough. It's kind of like Singleton and Allen. Tough to pick the correct one. You kind of are drawing out of a hat there, but both are solid players, and both can put up big scores. So I don't hate either of those two guys. I think they can put up big scores against this Notre Dame defense tonight.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the spots, like you guys already talked about it, running back's definitely a spot where you can get different, especially on the Notre Dame side. I mean, with Love, like, what do you guys, Sean? What do you guys got him projected at as far as ownership?
I think we have him at like 20%. Alex will know better than
he's got to be under that.
We have him at 17.
Yeah,
you really think he gets that high?
Yeah, it was just saying like he was around that in the Penn State game, and he looked a whole hell of a lot worse going into that one than he does going into this one. So he'll carry some ownership. I hate Jeremiah Love.
He's got to be the way, because that's not like high owned in Showdown, 17 or 20. Let's just say 20. No. That's not high.
You could lock and he could flip over at like 12%. I wouldn't be surprised.
And I still think like you're just eliminating the rake. Like if he beats me, I just can't see Notre Dame running on Ohio State enough unless he gets like 2 short touchdowns or something. Like, I think maybe that could be an outcome that Ohio State turns it over, returns a punt, something happens to get them down in there and they just run it in twice. But I mean, I get 0 in my 150 just running it naked. I kind of like that. I don't. Can you make a case for anything weird at running back, Sean?
No, I mean, do you know what our nickname is for Jeremiah Love?
No.
JDL.
What is it?
JDL, Jeremiah Dog Shit Love. Because
dude
is just known for literally not getting the ball at all, ever. And it
what did you think about him dragging his schlong all over you last game, though, jumping over you?
He was terrible. He just did that, except for the 2-yard touchdown run on 1st and goal.
Where he drug your entire football team into the end zone.
Yeah, okay. If he gets stopped there, they score in one of the next 3 plays. It doesn't matter anyways. If you remove his 99-yard touchdown against Indiana, the dude has like 25 carries for like 45 yards in the playoff. Like,
if you remove his 17 touchdowns this season, he has no touchdowns.
Yeah, there you go. See, there you go. You're fine with. No, here's the thing. He looked healthier against Penn State, so I actually don't think he's a terrible play. But Bruce talked about it. The receivers or the running backs for Texas each had 10+ points receiving. If you combine the two, they had 11 for 107 and 2 touchdowns through the air. That's pretty clearly a direct path due to how Ohio State's defense is playing things. They're giving up the running backs. In that scenario, I like Jeremiah Love and Aeneas Williams, more so Aeneas Williams due to the price, because I think Aeneas Williams will play a lot more, especially if they're in passing situations, and he should. But there's very clear paths for these guys to each catch 5 balls, and that's a pretty high upside. And with the fact, like, you look at the other side of things, like you look at Judkins, you look at Henderson, you look at like Egbuka, the guys that are in the similar price point to Jeremiah Love, they all could not put up very strong games. If Love can break a touchdown or he can catch 5 balls, very realistic that he beats all of them. And like you said, like, you ran 150 unconstrained here. Henderson 72, Judkins is 33. Can you flip over to the Ohio State receivers? Like, I guarantee Egbuka is going to be around like 50 probably. So like, if you have this, so you have Egbuka at 40%, Jeremiah Love's at 0. There is even obviously that's not going to be fully accurate. It's going to be, he's probably going to be like 15% owned, and these guys are going to be 40 to 50% owned. It's a lot more realistic that Love outperforms these guys more so than what the ownership percentages are indicating. So I actually think he's a really good play tonight. I think he's going to fail though. Like, I think he's going to suck, but I think ownership wise makes him an intriguing play.
These are the plays I always struggle with, just because I'm so confident in Ohio State. It's so freaking hard to click this, and I just never do. And it always burns me because I already said it, and I just know he's going to score 2 touchdowns now, and he's going to have 5 catches, like you said. He's going to have 20 points and suck.
Yeah,
he's going to have 2 5-yard touchdowns and 5 catches for 23 yards, and that's going to be enough to beat. Because I don't like Love Egbuka either, but yeah, Alex, what do you think of that whole thing?
No, I definitely have some interest in Love. The one that I'm on the fence with is Jadarian Price. He's been explosive at times this season, but in the playoffs, he's been awful. I think he's gotten 28 carries in the playoffs, and that really hasn't done much with it. He's averaging like under 3 yards a carry. He's the one that's not involved in the passing game at all. So if you're playing from behind, like, Price would be the one I'd look to get away from. Love has 26 catches on the year. I think he's going to get the first out of these 3 running backs. He's the one that are going to get running back carries at the goal line. If he's healthier, like, he's been explosive. He's over 7 yards a carry all season. Like, I think there's paths if Notre Dame plays well that Love, has a good game. So I'm definitely going to play some Love. The one that I'm debating Xing out is Price, just because I don't think his role is going to be great. And if he's not running any routes out of the backfield, I think that's definitely a negative in this matchup. Aeneas Williams is the interesting one, because he's probably going to come in 20 to 30% owned, which is fairly significant. And I just don't know if, like, last game was an outlier in terms of receiving. Like, he's obviously talented, and we took an under on his receiving yards. So I don't know. That one can certainly burn me, but I think he might get a bit overplayed on this slate. In terms of the Ohio State guys, I think I think there's a bigger difference between Henderson and Judkins than the projections suggest. And that's not just an us thing. It's across the board. Like there's a 3-point gap. Just from watching the games, it just seems like Henderson is the one that has the much bigger upside relative to his base projection. And that like Judkins is really going to struggle to like have a chance to hit 20. Whereas I think Henderson has upside in the 30s. So I think I'm going to try to overplay Henderson relative to Judkins, but I do like both of the running backs.
I will counter that. In every game in the postseason and just in general the season, Judkins is getting a much heavier workload in terms of on the ground. Henderson is just getting a better workload through the air. If they have the success that Penn State had running the ball, I think Judkins could end up with 5 or 6 more carries than Henderson, which that could produce. So I actually don't agree that the gap at Judkins and Henderson is as big as you're indicating. I actually think it's tighter than what we're indicating. But it's a weird situation because during the course of the regular season, Judkins as a whole was a better back most of the year. But in the playoffs, Henderson has looked much better.
I mean, that's where I disagree because Henderson's been like 7.3 yards per carry all season and Judkins is 5.2. And I know Judkins has gotten more work, so it kind of offsets that. But I just think they've been specifically resting and taking it easy on Henderson all year to allow him to have volume games when they need him down the stretch. And I just could see a lot of Henderson in open space this game.
Yeah, he's not getting the volume that you're talking about. He's getting the explosiveness, which is due to him being rested. But you're saying the volume.
We're not playing a head-to-head, though. We're trying to win a tournament. I think relative. Yeah.
But I'm saying, like, I think Judkins has gotten about 5 more carries than him on average every game. He's been more productive in the past game. So the question is just sort of, to me, they're still very similar. It's just a matter of who is more productive, which in the playoffs has looked like Henderson is more explosive. Like Henderson's never really impressed me until the back end of this year. Like every year, I think he has a nagging injury like every year and just sort of is like, oh shit, this guy looks like ass every year. And then this year in the playoffs, like, holy shit, this guy's like a top 3 running back in the nation.
Yeah, it just comes down to me. Like, I just think there's way more bigger plays in Henderson. Like, I think Judkins has like maybe like one play on the year over like 23 yards, something like that, where we've seen Henderson house things like repeatedly. So like that for in a 1-game slate when we're looking for upside, that's kind of where I lean. I would be surprised if Judkins didn't get more actual carries than Henderson. I'm just playing for like the super big play.
Yeah. I mean, I was going to bring this up in the show because last game, I obviously haven't followed it as close as you guys this year, but looking at the volume going into the last game, I was like super torn because of exactly what you guys said. And I was tilted for probably most of the first half because I played Henderson. Judkins was getting more work in my eyes, just like you guys are saying. And then right before the half, we get the house on the screen, 70 yards or whatever it was. And that's the explosiveness. But just in my head, again, you guys know all the numbers better than me, but it looks like a 50-50 split to me where it's just random who's going to break it. Granted, like you guys said, Henderson's had more explosive plays, but
yeah, I think like
also break it
for sure. Like Henderson's had like 9 of the top 10 big plays between the two of them. Like that's a pretty big
random. Could it just flip though?
Just watching them, it doesn't seem that random because like Judkins is not getting in space like Henderson on runs or on like targets. Like Judkins is going to be more the battering ram. Like they're looking for 5 yards on 2nd and 8. Like that's the Judkins play. Like Judkins really isn't breaking that many down the middle. Whereas I just think Henderson gets into space and is in better situations. I just think his touches are way more are higher value.
Yeah,
than Judkins.
These two teams played last year. And Henderson had a 61-yard touchdown run. Like there was no offense at all in this game, like 17-14 game. And Henderson had a long run. So, it's a totally different year with, totally different players and whatnot. But still, kind of showed it in that game that he can do it. So I just think he's looked better. Judkins, I don't know. He just hasn't looked the same since his freshman year at Ole Miss. Probably Lane running him into the ground.
And what's funny is like he hasn't been like amazing this year, but it was a great acquisition for them because it let them keep Henderson healthy all season. So it like worked out obviously ideal for them.
I think every big team, like every one of these type of teams going forward, is going to run this exact blueprint. just like Penn State with Singleton and Allen,
Mm-hmm.
with Texas with Wisner and Blue, Oregon with James and Whittington. Like, they're all going to start running just a 2-man backfield, limit them to 15 touches a game, with the idea of they're going to keep them fresh. And then if one of them goes down, the other one's going to be a workhorse because they're confident in that situation. But no, for me, I mean, here's the thing, right? We're talking about, okay, all 4 of us think Henderson looks much better, right? And we're all saying Henderson's much better. In reality, they're both going to get a very similar carry touch or very similar touch distribution. But Henderson is projecting in this untouched run at 72% compared to 33%. And if you look at the projections from every site is showing Henderson as 3 or 4 points better than Judkins. I don't know if that's necessarily true in a 1-game sample. It's enough where, like, if you're saying like Henderson is 2.5 times as likely to beat Judkins, I don't buy that. So I think Judkins is a better play from that perspective of, like, I think less people will play him. You do get a little salary savings, which can help. And I think there's just going to be a lot more people on Henderson, even though we do think he's a slightly better play.
I do tend to agree with Sean a little bit, just because, like I said, if you took away that house call before the half, I would have honestly felt better about having Judkins than Henderson. Just watching it and being purely on it. And
Judkins still beat him. Judkins still beat him last game.
He outscored him still with that house call?
Outscored him with that house call.
What was their points?
Judkins had 20.8 and Henderson had like 18.
Yeah, so that makes me like Judkins even more at these ownerships. And on top of it, if we think Ohio State is going to win the game, I don't know. I tend to agree with Sean. I think Judkins is a better play, even though we don't think he looks that is explosive.
Just for what it's worth, our ownership stuff's a lot tighter. We only have it like 7 or 8% apart.
I could see that. I mean, this is just because the
something that's always difficult with ownerships, right? Is you look at it, like Run Pure has it at 3.6. Saber Sim has it at 3.5. We have it at 2. Basically 2. I don't know what like Roto Grinders has it as, but like, so we will obviously weight our stuff more, which means that we think he's going to come in a little bit tighter. You can never really do that. And then also, like, you can't really factor in, it's like, hey, I need to be a little bit different. Where can I be a little bit different at? And then like decide where people are going to go. It's always hard to get that exact distribution right.
So last question with running backs. So we talked about quarterback rules and stuff. You guys said you didn't really need it. Do we need one of these running backs at Ohio State? Can we play two? Two different questions, but Alex, take it first.
Yeah, I don't want to put any restrictions on that. I think you could play both of them with Will Howard or have neither of them.
What would the path be where neither hit? Just low scoring?
No, pass-heavy game.
It'd just be a pass-heavy game. And I will say, like, Ohio State's had some really pass-heavy games relative to their baseline for the season after that Michigan game. Like Bruce was alluding to, I think Chip Kelly got a little talking to from Ryan Day, who's more inclined to pass the ball than Chip Kelly. And they had a game, I think last week was like 58% pass, and they were playing from ahead. So like they've had some high pass rate, neutral script games lately. So, and like both of these running backs, they need touchdowns. They're 8,200, 8,600. They need to score touchdowns. If the touchdowns just come through the air and their workload is balanced like we think it will be, like there's certainly paths where Ohio State passing game is the way to go, and you don't need either. Where I think you should make a rule is probably, I mean, I don't see it. You're not going to get this in optimizers anyway, but I wouldn't play more than 2 of the Notre Dame running backs in the same lineup. But you're not going to get 3 in anything you run anyway.
You would play 2 in a team? These 2 grease balls?
I could see playing like Love, Aeneas Williams, and Leonard in like a Notre Dame neutral or heavy lineup.
I could see Henderson and Judkins both being optimal. Like they probably were in that game against Texas, or they probably were at least in play.
I don't have a problem with that. These I'm just so clouded by Notre Dame. Like Aeneas Williams, what you guys talked about, like he had the one catch for what, 40 yards?
No,
yards?
he had like 5 for 50.
Yeah.
But one was deep though.
One was like 30 yards. So there's a couple of dump downs, and like
take that away, and he's just not that much.
No, so the 36 yarder. If you remove that 36 yarder, he still had like 9 points.
I don't think 9's gonna be. Yeah, I mean, I look at it different than you guys out there. I just don't. Man, I struggle with the Notre Dame pieces for sure.
No, I mean,
I couldn't imagine playing 2 of these guys together. But Bruce, anything crazy from you, Bruce, before we move to receiver?
No, I think I'm going to be heavier on Aeneas Williams than I am Tate tonight for sure. I know we're about to get to the receivers, but I just like him a little bit more. And
do we know snap counts for these three? Like you said, if they're playing from behind, it's bad for price. Like what do we think for like snap counts?
It's all over, but it's relatively even all year. But there is one direct path where it's not, and that direct path is the person that we know is injured gets re-injured, and it then becomes Price and Williams, at which point they're both very appealing plays.
So if Love gets injured, say, which we always got to talk about in Showdown because stuff happens and it opens stuff up, and people, I mean, third and long won a shit ton with San Francisco's backup running back the one night, $350K or something. You got to talk about it more in Showdown. So if he goes down, Price is the runner, Williams is more of the drop off pass catcher type.
Yeah. But like Price can also catch balls too. It's not like he's a zero catching the ball, but it's a direct path because like if we look back through the previous recent games, obviously it's more so Aeneas Williams as the pass catching back. Price isn't going to be heavily involved in it, but he can catch a ball or two. But like we have seen countless times now where Jeremiah Love gets injured and these other guys play a pretty significant amount. So there's paths to it. Also, like I don't think Love and Aeneas is bad. If I was maybe making a rule, I think I would make a rule of no Jeremiah and Price because I think those two, they directly compete for role comparatively to the others.
No, I think that one makes sense. And just for reference, like Love hasn't played over 38 snaps once on the season. Yeah. Like Love is not going to be out there all the time. And like it's a tough click for 9K but you do know that like if they're at the one, it's either going to be Leonard or Love getting the first touch. So I don't know. Like you said, he could score 2 touchdowns and just be the highest scoring Notre Dame guy. And just like it fits with the rest of the lineup. So I struggle with that too, just because 9K and you just know you're not getting 15 carries.
Yeah. Also, like with Aeneas, like I think that they've seen a lot more with Aeneas. He's played a significant amount more in the playoffs. And if they are trailing, I think he just plays a decent amount.
Yeah, I mean, he seems like the obvious one to me. So
like all these other, like these Notre Dame receivers, like I don't think any of the Notre Dame receivers are going to get like more than like 2 targets. I do think he gets more than 2 targets,
which makes him one of the best plays on the board. Yeah. Then, so last question before we go to receivers. So you got Love and Leonard. What is there any path where they both get there that we can see?
I mean, it's a thin path.
Be an extremely hard click to play those, unless you think Notre Dame wins.
Yeah, well, yeah, they have to because they're directly competing for the thing that they need to like hit the optimal, which is rushing touchdowns. So that one's definitely pretty thin. I think I agree. If you're playing Love and Leonard, like that's probably a game script where Notre Dame's scoring 28 plus points, and there's a good chance they're winning in that scenario.
All right, let's flip the receiver. Let's go team by team though to make it even simpler. Let's start with Notre Dame. Bruce, you're always good with these lesser guys because tonight, like we said, you got Mitchell Evans, obviously going to be one of the most popular guys at 3K. He looks pretty good to me, honestly, too. I loved him last game. What else we got at Notre Dame receiver, Bruce? Because we need some sneaky ones tonight to get different.
Yeah, last time these teams played, middle of the field was open. So Evans and Greathouse had decent games.
Real quick, too, before you go in, I don't want to interrupt, but just because it's all receiver and I know people watching don't follow it as close, who's the tight ends of this list?
Yeah, that's Evans, and Raridan plays some. He's more the blocking guy, doesn't play a ton. But, yeah, Evans is the
Evans and Raridan are the tight ends?
Uh-huh. Yeah, Evans is solid. He's played 76% of the snaps last week at 9 targets. Has a 19% target share last four games as well. So, they are targeting quite a bit, and he did have a huge game against Ohio State last year. I think he had like 7 catches or so. So they do like him a lot, and he could be open tonight. Greathouse, he had a huge game last week. Played 87% of the snaps. 7 targets. So, he's going to be in the slot, and middle of the field's been open. So I think he's a solid play. Faison kind of works at that area too. So he's not bad. Plays more on the outside. And then Bo Collins, if he's healthy, not a great receiver.
Syracuse or Clemson? What was it, Clemson?
Yeah, Clemson. Yeah, yep. Last week we were calling him Ho Collins with the EAUX.
I like that.
He only played 9% of the snaps.
Isn't that like the LSU thing, anyways? Is it in New Orleans tonight or no? Where is it?
Atlanta.
Yeah.
You were going with me if Penn State won, Tony.
I was in. I heard Alex was bailing on you. I wasn't bailing on you. I was going to be there. I still had you back.
That shit?
I heard it. I was still going to be there with you. I'd even worn Penn State gear for you.
I was considering drinking if we got there, Tony.
Well, you would have done that for sure if I went. That would have been unacceptable. But
yeah, I was going to go if Texas made it, but we had the game here last week against Ohio State, and I didn't want to go if you were starting. I said I'll go if they commit to Arch, and but yeah, I couldn't sit through that. So I just watched it from home, and about 30 minutes away. I just man, it was a rough watch even on TV, but I knew what was coming. But yeah, back to receivers. Jaden Thomas, he's kind of a bigger guy and used a little bit near the goal line as well. Played a lot more with Bo Collins out last week, so that 76% share count will probably go down quite a bit. I could see Collins playing that, and Jaden Thomas getting about 10%. So it just depends on what they do there and how healthy Collins actually is. Other than that, Chris Mitchell, I expected big things out of him this year. He transferred in, and I just thought he was going to be a great player. He's still getting near 40% of the snaps, but yeah, it's a little scary to play him just because he hasn't been great. But if you're playing some in the main and you want to outside the box kind of guy, I think he's solid because he can make those big plays. But yeah, other than that, Notre Dame receivers have been rough all year. It's been kind of spread out and tough to nail. I think Evans and Greathouse are probably the safer guys, with Faison right there as well.
Alex, what do you think about this disaster? And how many of these guys didn't even play? I'm assuming a bunch of these guys didn't even play last week, right?
I think all.
Yeah, Sherwood and Lower didn't play, but Colsey saw a couple snaps. Raritan always plays. Like, I know he had an end zone target in one of the playoff games. I think he's actually live to score a touchdown.
It was against Penn State. He had an end zone.
If he's live to score a touchdown, he's got to be live in Showdown then.
Yeah, for sure. Chris Mitchell has been total ass this year. I think he's 0.86 yards per route run, which is unbelievably, laughably bad. I think Greathouse is probably the most talented of the receivers, and his yards per route run stuff kind of backs that up. But just don't know opportunities game to game. We saw the first two playoff games that we thought like Jordan Faison was emerging as the go-to target for Notre Dame. Like, he was really involved. And then last game just went back to his normal role of getting a couple targets. So it's kind of hard to pinpoint if like Greathouse is going to like steam up into like 30% ownership. Like, that's a guy I'm not trying to like be on today, because I don't think playing any of these guys into ownership is great, except for Evans. His role is just very stable. But Faison's interesting because he's 6,400, which makes him a tough click because it puts you in a different lineup construction, which I think is good on this slate. And he's someone who definitely has a little bit of upside. And he's looked good at times. So he's pretty interesting if you're looking to like just build a contrarian lineup in terms of structure. In terms of the cheap guys, like I'll take some shots on Raritan just because I think he is live to score a touchdown and he allows you unique combinations of the top guys. And just like the other guys, Jaden Harrison, Thomas, Bo Collins, are just kind of mix and matching. Collins says he's near like 100%, but like Sean said, I don't think that matters tons. But I mean, he could catch a touchdown and be live at 4K. But even if he scores catches a 7-yard touchdown, like I'm not even sure that's enough for him to get in the optimal at 4K.
He's not going to outscore my kickers with that. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah. That's an exciting exciting conversation to come.
Shad, what do you got for these greaseball Notre Dame receivers? Oh,
you're on mute.
You broke the streak. What's going on mute?
I think that Notre Dame is one of those teams that just doesn't play their most talented receivers very much. I think Greathouse is their best receiver. I think Faison's their second best, and yet they play Bo Collins, Jane Thomas, and Chris Mitchell boatload, which I don't really understand. It's just sort of like we've seen it for like 2 years now. They don't have a consistency with their their receivers. The guy could have a good game. He's going to go back again 1 target the next game. Like we've seen it with Faison. We've seen it with Greathouse. Greathouse looked like he emerged like 3 times over the last 2 seasons and didn't. And then Bo Collins similar. So like, I don't know. It's pretty gross. Like Bo Collins has cracked 12 once on the year. Like it's just gross. I think the obvious best one is Evans. I think he's just going to be the guy that like snap happens and he like trots 5 yards downfield and just stands there, and he's going to get like 6 or 7 targets because of that. And that's plenty in this slate because there's just not many options. So
sorry to cut you off, but Evans has 3 touchdowns on the year. Raritan has 2. Just pointing that out.
Yeah, I mean, I think Raritan's one of the better cheap punts that you can run. I do have one I like a little bit more than him that we'll talk about when we go to the other side. But
what's the snap counts for those two? What's the difference?
Evans snap count's been pretty consistent. Raritan's is not great. It's like 20 snaps out of 75 last week, but he is in he's in like the 15 to 25 range almost every week. And he's just their blocking second tight end that just isn't going to get tons in terms of options. But
I think he runs more routes inside the 20 as well, which are higher value.
Yeah, his routes are typically going to be more so near the goal line, which is definitely something that is valuable. So I think he's reasonable. The issue is like these guys are just going to get 1 target. So like you literally just like if you're playing like a Jaden Harrison, it's like, okay, this dude's going to get 1 target. Can he catch a bomb? But if he catches a bomb, nobody's going to play him. And because everyone's so bad, he's probably going to end up in the optimal. Harrison is someone that at least has possibilities of upside. He's played at least 10 snaps in almost all games, not the last one, but he's played 10 snaps in like every game except for the last one. He does have a couple 2-3 target games, and he has games where he is at least catching balls down the field. So I think he's probably the most interesting cheap punt play to me on Notre Dame. Like,
is he the guy who housed the return for a touchdown?
Yes. Hey, you know what? That actually plays a little bit into it too. Is if you get the kick returner, at least, hey, if he rips off 6 and then catches the ball, like good shot at the optimum. But he has a game where he went 3 for 41 and a touchdown. If he goes 3 for 41 and a touchdown tonight, he's probably in the optimal lineup. So I think he's probably my favorite of the cheap punt receivers, especially because he has a big playability than a lot of the other guys.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like a disaster looking at this. But the flip side to that, I mean, it looks so obvious that Evans is going to grind his way to the winner. But the flip side of that, always in Showdown, is it opens up opportunity to solo ship or limited chop ship if you just take some chances on some of these guys. Like who's the biggest like burner of these just bombs? Like who could just catch an out pattern and just go to the window?
Harrison
for sure.
Harrison's the most likely home run threat of, well, like, I mean, it's Greathouse, but like of the bombs.
Yeah, no, of the bombs of these guys.
Yeah, it's definitely Harrison, and it's probably Harrison for both teams.
Perfect. So I think that's important because the pivot's off. You want to get that long house to be, because Evans, I think it's pretty safe that he gets 8 to 12 points pretty consistently, in my opinion, just the way I see the game going. But one of these guys could catch one pass and outscore him. So it makes it super interesting. Let's go to the last
Penn State game. Penn State game, Evans put up 5 for 58. So getting to 11 would be your barometer where you need to hit. It's definitely possible for someone to get to 11. The issue is like Evans definitely had upside above 11 too.
I mean, if he catches a touchdown, he's almost a lock to be on the winner.
To be fair, if any of the cheap guys catch a touchdown, they have a really high probability.
But I mean, like Evans is going to grind his way to at least some number, though. Where the other guys, it's going to be one. We're saying the same thing, though. Let's move to the more exciting side. Ohio State. Some of the best plays, obviously, of the slate, and some of the sneakier plays. I can't wait to hear who your sneaky play is. But Bruce, start us out again with the Ohio State side at receiver. And what to do. I think it's important with how we think they cover Jeremiah Smith because of what we were talking about at the beginning of the show. If they try to single cover him, I mean, he's got to be the best play of the slate. I know last game, Bruce and I, we were super high on that, as everyone was, but in the captain, and he laid a dud. But what does that mean for tonight, Bruce? Do we come back with it? How do you see Notre Dame dealing with him, and what do you think of the rest of Ohio State?
Yeah, I think this is like one of the most interesting parts of this slate is how Notre Dame plays defense. They've been playing man all year. They said they're going to continue to play man, do what got them here. So, if they do that, I don't know. I don't see how they hold Jeremiah Smith down at all. He's expensive, but he can put up 30 plus in the spot if they single cover him. That's definitely a possibility here. He's going to be owned for sure. I think that if they do something to shut him down, I think Igbuka is a good target to put up a big score. He put up a big score against Notre Dame last year, and the good teams that Notre Dame has played that have been able to pass the football this year have beaten them in the slot. I like Igbuka a lot. I saw the USC game. I think Mekhi Lemon was like 3K, and everybody was on him. He was pretty high owned. He like had 9 catches for over 100 yards, and they play similar position. He could be open quite a bit and put up a big score. He's going to be owned for sure, but I think I'm already on his props. I think 61 plus receiving yards. Put some money on that. I think it's a solid play. I'm going to be lower on Tate. I just think it was a good spot for him last week against the defense. I probably should have been lower on Smith, but that happens. I'm going to be lower on Tate. I think G. Scott is a solid play. Tight end, had 5 targets last week. Looked good. They're kind of using him a little bit more. You also have Kazmarek there, who's solid too. Both good receivers at the tight end position. But it's pretty concentrated with the snap count for Ohio State at receiver and tight end. So it's pretty easy to get right. You just have to fade some of these guys or just not play them. The ownership that they're currently sitting at, like Smith's going to be high owned, Igbuka's going to be high owned, Tate's going to be high owned. So, I'm just going to try and make a stand there and hopefully get it right.
So, G and Kazmarek are the 2 tight ends. Is that what you said?
Yep.
And then it's just from watching the game again. I know I keep saying it, but I didn't watch like a ton of Ohio State. G. Scott looked good to me, though, in the last game. And just eyeballing ownership, and this is what I think I'm decent at, is I don't see how these prices can be like this and these ownerships can be. I know the projections are way different. I'm not saying they're not, but just eyeballing the game, G. Scott looked good to me in that game. There's no way that the ownerships can be this lopsided, at least to me. But talk more about that, Alex, with the roles and kind of what that means.
Yeah, we have G. Scott for 7%, which I could see going either way. So I think 5 to 10% is a pretty good range for him. It's just really tough for people to click him over Tate. My flag plan on our show earlier was fading Tate. So I'm right there with Bruce taking an underweight position on Tate. I think ultimately Notre Dame plays more man. That obviously plays more man than like Texas did, but I don't think it's going to be the extreme bracket. Like I've never seen a harder bracket than what Jeremiah Smith faced last week. I think it's going to be somewhere in between. They're not going to do the Tennessee thing. They put them single covered. So I think Smith can be productive. And I think that comes at the expense of Tate, but it's hard not to project Tate for 8 to 10 points with the role we've seen him have in some games. And his role has been extreme either way. Like I think out of the last 4 games, he has like 2 games with the last 5 games, he has like 2 games with 9 targets and then like 3 games with under 3 or 3 or less, something in that range. So he's definitely a guy who can completely fail or completely bury you, but I'm more apt to take an underweight on him. In terms of the tight ends, yeah, I'll let Sean talk about Kazmarek, but the other guys, Ennis is only going to play if like Jeremiah Smith is winded from running a go route and he comes out of the game for a play or two, or someone gets hurt. Ennis and Rogers would be the backup receivers who possibly could not play, or they could get a couple snaps. Thurman didn't play last week. I don't think Ballard or Christian played either. They're just guys who could get in the game if things go sideways. So like for me, I'm Xing those guys out. I could see playing an Ennis or a Rogers possibly, but at that, they're not my favorite.
Come in if Jeremiah's winded, or just say he somehow rolled an ankle or something? Who's the beneficiary to that?
Probably Ennis. But
it
it depends. If like Ibuka rolls his ankle, it could be Ennis who plays more in the slot. Bryson Rogers might be more likely to replace Jeremiah Smith. So I mean, they're the next man up kind of guys. I prefer Kekmeric because I know he's going to be on the field. Like he saw 2 targets last game. I think he's less likely to score a touchdown than Raritan, but more likely to catch a pass, likely in between the 20s. So I don't know. I have trouble seeing a situation where at least one Ohio State receiver is not in the winning lineup, but I'm not sure how you all feel with that.
Sean, what do you think?
Yeah, so Thurman and Christian actually both did play last week, but they didn't run a route. Yeah. They didn't play very many routes. So I like G. Scott. I don't think he's going to be I think he's going to be in the 10 to 15% range. I think he's a pretty reasonable play. He was also a beneficiary of the bracket to Jeremiah Smith. I think he had like 8 points. But the person that I think is interesting from a cheap perspective is Kazmarek. He is the backup number 2 tight end. He did outplay G. Scott last week. He has actually had the last 3 games, he has ran more routes and had more snaps than he's had in any game of the season, all 3 of them. So it's been very clear that they've been utilizing him more. Now, granted, a lot of that is in the pass blocking and run blocking roles. But needless to say, he's at least on the field a lot more. And in this type of game, like I feel like what we see a lot in these type of games is like a play is designed. It's like, hey, we're going to bracket Jeremiah. Everybody on the field thinks we're going to throw to Buka, G. Scott, or Carnell Tate. So let's just literally draw up this design that gets Kazmarek wide open with no one within 40 yards of him. Like that's the type of play that we see in this type of game where they save it all year and they're like, hey, this play design is going to draw up Kazmarek wide fucking open and no one will be near him. So I think he's an interesting play from a punt perspective. I think on the Ohio State, like Bruce said, they don't play anybody. You are going to see Smith, Ibuka, Tate, Scott, and Kazmarek. That's it. You maybe will get a random Ennis snap or Rogers snap or an injury, but like obviously we can't really predict that per se. And even if they do get an injury, like you might just see 2 tight ends run. Like there's a possibility where Kazmarek is also the beneficiary in that situation as well. So I think that for Ohio State, Kazmarek is my favorite 1K play. For Notre Dame, Harrison is my favorite 1K play. But now these guys suck. Like I'm not saying like it's a lot from these guys, but I think in terms of looking at the ownership, the guys that I don't think G. Scott's going to be below 10% owned. If I don't think G. Scott's going to be below 10% owned, I don't think Tate is. I don't think Greathouse is. I don't think some of these other guys are. These are the only paths where I can see you getting a guy that is legit sub 2% that could produce.
And that's all that matters. Again, it's Showdown. It's a fun game. Everyone wants to watch it. I always use the same example. If you're playing 5 teams, build 2 or 3 chalky teams with the obvious plays or pretty close to obvious, and then take a chance with 1 or 2 with some of these guys. Because if you get it right, there's no better feeling in the world in Showdown than when your dust ball somehow houses one from 8 yards or something, and you got a 2% owned guy that outscores all this heavy chalk like Tate and these guys. There's no better feeling because you know you're live for just a ton of money rather than – and there's nothing wrong with playing a chalky team or 2 because sometimes the chalk just hits and these guys get there and you chop it and you win whatever it is, $500,000 off the obvious team. There's nothing wrong with that. So I think you can go multiple directions where there's a lot of people like, I want all uniques. I want all this and that, or I'm too chalk. I think you can have a balance between both of them and just give yourself outs to where it could go both ways. But anything else at the receiver, Bruce, from Ohio State side?
No, everything. I mean, they don't play a whole bunch of guys, so they're pretty easy. That's you love to see that on Showdown, especially with the Notre Dame side, who plays quite a bit.
All right, last position, and then we'll look at some plays of the day and stuff. But kicker, my favorite spot. Not necessarily in this game, but I do usually like kickers. We were talking a little bit before the show. Ohio State, just their box scores are terrible. I think Alex said they only made like 15 field goals all year.
Well, they only attempted. They made 11.
Only
so
attempted
like it's even
15, which is insane because they played how many games now? 14, 13? 15 games too.
Yeah.
So one per game they're attempting. And the box scores also reflect it because they score a bunch of points, and he really doesn't have any sort of 2 double-digit games or something. And I think kicker is the one position you can for sure game log watch where if they got a bunch of like 10s, 12s like that, it's just promising because maybe they move the ball between the 20s, different stuff like that. But for me, it is tough to play the Ohio State guy, especially with some of those values. But he's going to be low owned. You never know what the game flow. I mean, maybe he bangs a 50-yarder the first drive or something, and that really sets it up. So I want to leave him in. But I like Jeter. He was clutching that last game too. Hit a couple big ones. I like it, but John, is there any reason to play kickers over those value guys?
I think the kickers are fine. I mean, typically in college, kickers are way worse than what you see in the NFL in terms of like expectations for a couple reasons. One, they just score more points in college, and typically it's not via field goals. And two, there's typically 1K guys that you're like, oh, this guy can literally put up like 15 at 1K, which you don't get in the NFL. But I mean, they're both fine. They're not appealing, I guess is the word. But like, could I see Jeter putting up 10? Sure. If he puts up 10, could he be an optimal? Very good shot. So I wouldn't like go out of my way to
what
like.
If I told you he gets 10 tonight, what do you do with him? He gets 10 for sure, no more, no less. What do you do with him?
Probably playing him like 35% or 40%. I think.
Do you agree, Alex, about 35 if you give him 10?
Yeah, I think that's right. I was gonna say 30, but yeah, I think he probably needs a I don't know. I mean, I'm definitely higher on Notre Dame kicker. Like he's been hurt most of the year. He's been healthy now. He's looked good in the playoff games. Whereas like
you got a chance to shove it up my ass, he took that opportunity.
Well, your ass was busy.
So
this
nervous
season.
before that kick too. I thought for sure he was going to miss. He was pissing down his legs.
Oh,
no. It's just like I think Ohio State's going like 4th and 3 on the 30 in the opening drive. I could see Notre Dame kicking a field goal, whereas Ohio State's going for that 10 times out of 10. I think so. I just think there's going to be less opportunity for Ohio State kicker, even though their total is higher. And the price tag's a little bit higher. If I was doing 150, I would certainly play some of both. I was trying to sell Sean earlier on a double kicker lineup, but
no, I don't think 2 kickers can be in your lineup. I don't think a kicker captain could work.
If the score ends up like if it's under like 35, I could see both kickers.
No, it's the same thing as you use the NFL example, and that's what we could get in a low scoring 45-point total. Where say it's 21-10, but it's through the studs that get the touchdowns.
That's why I don't think it works, because if you need the studs, these guys are priced too high to really get all of them. Whereas like you're better off having that guy that puts up 2 for 20 that is 1K. If they were cheaper, I would actually agree with you. But the reason I don't think so is because of that point you just said. But yeah,
gotta get you different though too. Like there's something to be said for getting different. Where it's got to get you different. People don't want to click the kickers in college.
The issue with kickers, so like if you go Tony and if you lock both kickers and then run a lineup, the issue is you still have to have a third cheap guy. So basically, by playing a kicker, it does not get you a situation where you don't have a third cheap guy. Which, like, I don't see, like, a third cheap guy coming in play there. So, for that reason, I don't like the kickers as
Let's see what it gives us if I just jam the kickers.
Well, I think it's going to – oh, yeah, because you removed it. Yeah, so, like, I think what you're going to see is, like, it's every lineup is going to have 3 big dogs and Carnell.
But though you're going to get the big dogs at captain and not
yeah, but I can get the big dogs at captain without playing 2-3 shitters.
Yeah, but you're also getting a huge ownership discount.
Yeah, see, like you have Carnell Tate, but like I could do that exact same lineup with just not having like one of the kickers and not having like I could effectively like.
For example, though, like say it's 28-6 tonight with Notre Dame getting 2 field goals early. Like say it's 14-6 at halftime. They score 2 touchdowns in the second half. Like this could easily be the winner with a 28-6 score.
Yeah,
right?
it's possible. I'm not going to say it's not possible that something like that could happen, especially in a game like tonight that I think smells. But my issue is that like going double kicker doesn't get me enough big dogs. Whereas like, so now like, all right, take out the kickers and run your lineup, right? You're going to get 4 big dogs instead of 3 big dogs because you don't have the kickers, because effectively you have, you're going to have a Carnell Tate and a Mitchell Evans. So like,
yeah, but it's like
what?
But if the production's concentrated on just the 3 big dogs and not the 4,
like if you do have actual production and there's only 3 people, but the issue is like that's super tight, and I just don't think that happens often enough to make it viable. Because like I'd rather have 4 bigger dogs than 3, and that's what it does. Like that lineup right there, like I have Jeremiah Smith, Leonard, Egbuka, Howard comparatively to Howard, Jeremiah Smith, Henderson, and like
what's weird on this slate is there's like not one play that I feel great is getting 20 points. Like that's like a no-brainer. Like if we played like so many of the college games, like there's like a play where you're like, okay, this guy's getting 25 to 30 like most times. I don't like, that's the weird thing about this slate. I see passive failure over like every single position, every single player in the pool, which is weird for a college showdown.
Let's see what the Sim spit out real quick without the kickers. I'm just curious if it gives.
Why don't you tell them the optimal is going to be duped 1,000 times and not 4?
Who's KK Smith? Where'd he pop out of?
He's a random receiver that probably won't play for Notre Dame.
This must be the build that just
that just illustrates like getting like playing these 1K guys who have a chance at doing anything just gets you so unique that it's worthwhile on the like in the flagship.
Yeah,
all these 1K. This is just Ohio State just.
But like you could run that exact lineup with Raritan, right?
I would X out like the guys who I don't think are going to see the field.
I'm sure I will later too. I just wanted to see like the.
But like that goes to the point, right? Like you have effectively 4 big dogs and Carnell Tate, who's not bad, and then you have that 1K guy. Like if that 1K guy produces, it's massive.
Or I mean, there's a possibility a 1K0 on the slate is the optimal.
But in that situation, it's gonna be duped a lot too. So
it won't be duped. It'll just be all the 1Ks who get 0 are tied.
Did you have salary left with that, Tony?
It was 900.
Yeah, so you could have that with Raritan, you could have that with Casimir. Someone's gonna catch a ball, right? Someone cheap is gonna catch a ball. But like that type of lineup for sure could be in. And if you have the right guy that is 1K, like they're going to only be 2-3% owned max. Like it just can't be duped that heavily because
this one says 0 dupes probably because of KK Smith.
I think they just like all college football stuff. Just like it just, I don't know.
It's impossible to tell. And like, you just never know. Like, I feel like some strange guy is going to score tonight though.
Well, that lineup probably might be 0% because KK Smith literally might not play. But like, if you put in Raritan, like just can you put Raritan in that lineup and see what it comes out at? Because like, that will show as like more so than
but like I don't even think like we have Raritan as any ownership either. But
true, that's true. That's fair. No, you have more. We'll have more than 0. We probably have Raritan like 1.
So this is actually a nice Raritan build where I just clicked the top one, but
I actually like exactly like that lineup. I mean, if Raritan produces and scores a touchdown, very possible that lineup's in the optimal.
The only problem is you got no running backs in a lineup like this, but I guess it could work. I mean,
but you could easily just take out Egbuka and change that play to, I think Henderson or Judkins, or at least like, or you could change something to make it work.
Yeah, gotcha. All right. Anything? Oh, I hit the wrong button. Anything else from the kicker? No. All righty, let's finish up with just some of one of our favorite low-owned plays, and then maybe a bet or so. Actually, I wanted to. You guys got any bets we can talk about? Let's do the bets first. Let me show.
We just have
real quick.
We just had a couple of props. We were on the.
Hold on one second. I'm gonna pull this up. Let me see if it'll actually let me. Okay, so if you guys haven't seen this Gambly setup, it's free. Check it out because it's pretty cool. Because say one of your buddies has a prop like Alex is about to talk about right now. Let's see if it actually pulls up on cue. But what were you going to say?
One of ours, we had Jeremiah Love over 43.5 rushing yards, just to tilt Sean.
No, I like that one better than the Williams one.
So all you got to do, Jeremiah Love props, pull it up. Actually, it'll give you the opening lines too. But what'd you say?
Like 43.5.
So 43 and I don't know how DraftKings isn't popping up right now, but
well, we post. They don't do college football lines, I think, or they don't do
really?
overs.
Maybe in Kentucky they or anywhere.
No, DK was just doing like overs on certain milestones this year.
Yeah,
that sucks. But
cowards, complete cowards.
Hey,
hashtag partner. Hashtag DK partner.
Yeah, hashtag get them up there, DK. Come on, but yeah, a bunch of options. I actually like that. The under. I'm surprised it's this high, honestly.
It's moved up a couple from where we posted at, and the other one's Aeneas Williams over some receiving yards.
It was under the Aeneas Williams. I know Sean will hate that one too.
I was gonna type it.
I don't like that one as much as I don't even know how you spell his name. It's like A-E.
Yeah, A-N-E.
A-N-E.
Y-A-S.
Y-A-S.
I feel like I give you 1,000 tries, you would not get it. But
I am confident I wouldn't get it either.
You still spelled it wrong.
I'm sure I did. Let's see if let's test it. Oh yeah, I probably spelled it wrong. God dang it! I need to go find it now. I need to look at it.
No, just delete.
You had
the
it
I.
right. Just no I.
No I.
Like that.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Look at that. There we go.
Yeah, we had under 24.5. We're projecting 18.93. So. But I do acknowledge.
Man, I like his receiving. Is the bad part.
I know. I know.
All right. Nothing. Bruce, you like any props?
Yeah, I had Bo Collins over 13.
You guys are trying to give me all the names I can't spell.
Over 13 receiving yards, and then Mitchell Evans over 32.
Man, we get some decent numbers on a few of these.
Yeah, I think I'm in Texas, so all we have is nothing. So,
what'd you say, Mitchell Evans?
Yeah, Mitchell Evans.
Let's see. What'd you say? Over?
Yeah, over 32.
One thing you can do too that I like to use props for is like say you're fading Evans because of how high owned he is. You can just bet the prop for a little bit over. If he goes over, you got a little bit of a hedge built in there where you don't have to totally get nuked if he does good or something like that.
What's the fun in not being able to get totally nuked?
I mean, I didn't say I do it. I just said some people like to hedge out there in those parts. But
just wanted to talk. So bring the noise, set it in chat. Definitely need to X out Buckner. He won't see the field. So what we did is we basically give everybody that we think could potentially play at least some projection for tonight. So like it literally might be like our projection for him might effectively be like he will see one target if this game is ran like 50 times is basically like what we're giving as a projection. Because if a blowout happens, which we all know can happen, we need those guys to have some sort of projection. Otherwise, nobody will get them in their runs. And obviously, like if you don't adjust him, he's not going to come up in your runs anyways. And then from a prop perspective, to me, the best props on the day are deciding what you think Notre Dame is going to do from a defensive standpoint in regards to Jeremiah Smith, and take ladders in regards to either Carnell Tate or Jeremiah Smith. Because I think that if Jeremiah Smith is not bracketed like he was last time, I think that there is a ladder possibility with him. And then if they bracket him, then Carnell Tate and G. Scott, like ladders are pretty favorable bets.
So one of the cool things about gambling too is exactly what Sean just said. And my favorite bets are the ladder bets, just because, especially in college, we hit a few this year, like you guys were talking about last week, where these guys just go crazy sometimes when the matchups work. So you come on, receiving yards, milestones, and it makes it super easy to, here we go with our DraftKings. So like, look at this. So what I like to do, which is different than other people, but I like to find the first plus number. And so over 90, boom, click that, click 170. And I like to just take it up like this. With a guy like this, he could literally get 200 yards tonight. Yep. So I like to click them all in there. And granted, you're going to go, well, unless you really like to get after it, you're going to go less on the higher ones. But the nice thing is you click them all in there. You can share it with your buddies, and then it'll take you straight to DraftKings to bet them if you go right there. So if you haven't checked out the gambling stuff, it's sweet for stuff like this.
Well, yeah, go to Carnell Tate real quick, see what Carnell Tate's at, because we can talk about it just from like what happened last weekend. So like Carnell Tate had 87 yards receiving last week, and as someone who didn't watch a single snap, Alex said he's like Carnell Tate could have had like 150 yards. So like
look at these things. Look how tasty these are. I mean, you only have to get 50 to get plus 150 at DraftKings.
Yeah, and he's like, so he had 87.
What's under 20? What's under 20? Can you do unders?
You had me more excited talking about the overs.
Yeah. But like, so like that type of ladder, like last
yards is 10-1, man.
If you look at this, like last week, like if you had 100 yards, like Tony just said, like you're just drilling everything. Like you're drilling the world with that.
And you're going to feel amazing. So like, seriously, what is wrong with, if you want to get some leverage in DFS, you fade him because he could get 2. Yeah. But you come in and you put a little on these ladders. And if he goes for 100 yards, or even if he goes for 80 yards, 70 yards, and you're getting some good numbers in here, you're going to feel good, even if your DFS gets crushed because of it.
Yeah, and you're sure shit going to make more than you will in DFS if he goes and pops off.
Oh, my God. If you put even like quarter unit on all these or something, and he somehow goes for 100+, I mean, you're going to be dancing. Like Fitzmagic at the Bills game yesterday with his freaking shirt off.
Right.
He's going to be outside just loving it. All righty, let's wrap it up with, let me pull the other tab back up. What plays of the day? Some of the not obvious ones we got to give. What do you guys usually do for? We got to give someone that's not a stud. Like none of these obvious plays.
Yeah,
Bruce, start us out with somebody that's not an obvious play. Play of the night. Who's gonna win? Who's gonna win someone a lot of money in this main $20 DraftKings tournament? They're gonna win the money because of this guy. Who is it?
Yeah, I'm gonna go with G. Scott. Just as a lower owned guy. I also like Aeneas Williams a little bit too, but I think G. Scott, his ownership looks good. I like that area of the field for receivers, so I think he has a solid day.
He looked good to me last game too. I'll admit it. He looked. I liked how he looked a lot. Alex, who you got? Who's going to win it for us tonight?
I'm going to go with 1K Eli Raridan, who could still help you win it even if he scores 0 points.
Yeah, he was a flat 1K, right?
Yeah, I would say just don't make a lineup with him where you're leaving like 2K on the table. Like you want him because you can get everyone else a unique combination where he doesn't have to do anything or like beat anybody 1v1. Other than the 1K flat guys.
Because you said that, I forgot I was going to ask you guys this too. Because a lot of people don't use an optimizer. They don't like the 1 to 5 teams or something. What's the most salary you would leave if you're just in there hand building stuff like that? Like, what would you want to leave tonight?
I mean, it just depends on the construction. Like if I'm playing Raridan, I'm leaving like nothing. But if I'm playing pretty like
just say you're building guys, like a lot of people are going to build a pretty chalky team, like a standard build. What are you leaving?
I could leave like 2K. That's fine.
Okay.
Yeah,
Sean,
I have no problem with that.
What do you think, Sean?
I'm gonna take Harrison. I think Harrison has some big play upside. It's either him or
the burner you were talking about, right?
Yeah, it's either him or Kazmarek. To me, those are my 2 favorite cheap options that are not like going to be at least 10%.
All righty, and last thing though, who's the bets? It's 8.5. We talked about you guys like no points, but Bruce, what's your official sides tonight?
I'm going to go with Ohio State and slightly lean the over, but I mean
Ohio State and over.
Yeah, it's pretty close.
Alex, what we got?
I would lean Notre Dame in the points and under, but I'm not taking a side or total in this game, so I don't feel great about it.
You're freaking Sean now. You're supposed to be the DJ with me. You're supposed to come in with confidence.
Hey, I'm giving something. I don't want to like double my money because I'm right on the side. I'll throw something crazy.
It's not about that. It's about inflicting confidence in the people. You can't be like,
okay, well,
I'm not playing. I'm going to take a nap during the game.
I'll play Ohio State money line if we're doing that.
I do want to bring this up because I honestly feel like the best bet is to tease from 8.5 to 2.5 Ohio State and put it with either one of the NFL games next weekend because both spreads are pretty tight. Like take Buffalo plus 7.5, take Washington plus 11.5 or something. I think those are my favorite bets.
I don't mind that. Yeah.
Okay. John,
Yep.
what's your sides?
I mean, I would have said the
During
same
your
thing.
nap, who are you betting on during your nap tonight?
Well, I literally would have done what Alex said. I think I like Notre Dame in the points and the under, but I think if I am taking something that is less interesting for you, I would take an alt line on Ohio State and play like that they blow them out, because I don't think Notre Dame can blow them out. I think Ohio State can win by 3 touchdowns possibly. Like Penn State should have probably won by 2 touchdowns last week. And I think Ohio State's a much better team than Penn State. So I would probably, if I'm trying to do something spicy, I would take some sort of an Ohio State alt line.
I don't know if I can pull up the actual. That was going to be my bet, is the funny thing, because I think Ohio State wins by 4 touchdowns tonight.
Yeah, like I would do like an alt, like I would like maybe ladder up an Ohio State alt line up to like 21.
Yeah, let's see what these plus.
Oh, baby doll. Here,
Yeah,
this is my section right here.
Like I would probably do something like
13.5.
Yeah, 13.5 or 16.5.
What's my price on Notre Dame plus 21.5?
Yeah. What
Minus 4,000.
Alex is getting extra sex with his pants on.
That's a whale. That's a whale play.
Got to be what? Plus
No. He wants Notre Dame plus the points.
I said Notre Dame plus 21.5.
Well, that's what I mean. It'll be the reverse of this, though. So
it'll be like minus 1,000. The way they market these. They book.
And you're gonna get worked with it too. You're gonna get wee with it. But I guess that's it. But talk about, you guys always, are you just doing college football over there, or do you want to plug anything you guys do while we got you on? Because you guys do great work. 2 of the best niche people I've ever met. 2 just great guys. Love being buddies with them. They're always helpful to me, and they're 2 of the best. You guys do anything besides college football anymore, or no?
We did a March Madness package last year, which we might run back this year, but it would be just for the NCAA tournament. That's still to be determined. But yeah, college football package we're back in the fall. But it's been a good season. Definitely enjoy the work you all do as well. I think there's pretty decent contests these days for college football. So hopefully the interest stays steady going forward.
Also, say where they can find you, Alex. Where, Twitter or wherever.
Yeah, you can find us at Fear My Turtle DFS or the ETR Discord and the college sports stuff.
Sean, what's your Twitter? Where can they find you tilting, whatever random stuff you're tilting today?
If you want to see me tilting, you got to be in the ETR Discord. And even then, I don't tilt in there as frequently as I do in Alex's DMs. But
and I'm sure those DMs are a fun place to be.
Yeah, because Alex just disappears. It used to be way more fun when he would actually like interact back. Now he just like leaves and just like.
He's probably depressed from listening to you.
He's depressed because he sucks at college football DFS. So he just like,
I gotta keep my blood pressure under control. I can't just tilt all day.
Yeah, Alex sits there and bitches. Alex tells me, he's like, yeah, you're like so stressed out, you're gonna be unhealthy. Then he's like in the doctors because his blood pressure is too high. So I wasn't the doctor because of my blood pressure being
can't
high.
Beat genetics.
Well, so no, you can find me at Twitter, PSU Fans 2. We had a really good props product this year. Were you in there betting our props there this year, Tony?
Yeah, but it's always like you got to sign in at 2:04 p.m. and you got to get on there and do that. I mean, it's too much work. It's too hard.
We will tout that. We went 162 and 107 for plus $4,043 betting $100, so 13.15% ROI.
Trying 44 units. It was a good year.
Yeah, not betting any openers, not betting any alt lines, everything from FanDuel, like after lines have been up a few days. So felt pretty good about that. It was definitely a bit of a grind, but glad it ended up working out.
I always respect the lines too, because I think we all tout stuff. I think when you tout stuff, I'm not saying you can't ever put something up early. Like if it's a big game or something like these games, playoff games, like Super Bowl, you can put it up early. But if it's like a Thursday night friggin' college football, college bet, like put it up an hour before game time or a couple hours before game, so a normal person can bet it. Like you can't tout something that you got a 4-point line move when no one can freaking bet it. Like that's one of my pet peeves.
That's the difference of trying to run a product where you're balancing like release time so like everyone can get as much action as they can versus like you're just touting like what you're doing on like people obviously can do what they want, but like they're posting a lot of like opening lines at alt books where like, yeah, you should destroy those numbers, but yeah, it's just a balancing act, and it definitely getting harder year to year. So
yeah, I mean, we would sit on lines this year for like fucking 4 days waiting for because we needed the market to be mature, and then we'd post it and still get nuked immediately. But
it's always going to get nuked right away when you put them up.
Yeah, like we make sure that we wait as long as possible to put them up to give people as much chance. So if you're interested in props, like we had a successful product. We had a really good college basketball props product last year too. I think it was a similar like 13, 14%.
It was like, I think it was like 8 or 9, but
8 or
like
9.
Yeah,
well, yeah, because we figured out something in the middle of the tournament that really adjusted it upwards off the start. But yeah, so much of the issue with college, we literally went like 13 weeks in a row with profitable weeks, because the issue is, as like you guys all know, the beginning of the season is educated guessing to some extent. Whereas like once we have information, I think we did not have a week of losing from the beginning of October through, I think, last week. Did you lose last week, Alex? I think you might have been like 3-3.
Yeah.
But like that was the first losing week we've had since October. So we're happy. We put a lot of effort into the props product being an improved product for us, and it worked out pretty well.
Yeah, and people these days just love to bet the prop stuff. Like all the casuals, that's where they love that stuff. I love that stuff. People love that stuff. So makes it fun to know that you got sharp lines, especially when you can put them in some parlay. I mean, everyone likes parlays. They might not be the best thing, but when you get sharp props, it's nice to pop them in the single game or whatever they're doing.
Well, it's nice too because you can use it like if Bruce has props he likes and we have props we like and they're the same props, you can feel confident in them, or vice versa. Like if Bruce posts something and we have something the complete opposite, maybe that's one you sit there and you stay away from in the week. And I guarantee if you do stuff like that, you're going to have an even higher ROI than you would if you're using one thing. So like it's a nice thing that you can use multiple different products and it benefits you in multiple ways.
I mean, I love it too. And I'll talk up Bruce and I talk up you guys. Like one of the reasons I love college football because I can look at your guys' projections and your info, and I know for a fact I can trust Bruce with my life. There's no one that likes college football more than him. He's in there. He's got all the news. He's telling me when a quarterback is going to hold his helmet that night. He knows the cheap receivers. So when you bet, everybody like wants to think you can't like look at multiple places. That's how you should do it. That's what I love to do. There's nothing wrong with listening to multiple sharp people. And that's like, there's nothing I like more than that. And Bruce, like no one grinds college football like these three, but I see Bruce daily basis just in there and interacting with the people too. I can only imagine how many Discord messages this guy has helping the people. So check us out at Run Pure 2 in the Discord. Obviously the college football season's over now, but next season we'll be back. Those guys will be back. Bruce, any last words from you? I know it's been a long season. I personally appreciate everything you've done for Run Pure this year. I think you've been amazing as always. And I know the members absolutely love you, but anything to polish this thing up for us.
No, I mean, I really enjoy y'all jumping on here with us. I read y'all's stuff every week. After I get done with mine, I pull up your website and read whatever y'all have down. I may not go in the Discord too much, but I definitely appreciate everything y'all do. And I know it's a lot of work. I'm tired. I'm tired right now. I've got a lot of training to do for work, do my other job. But, it's just it wears on you by the end of the year for sure. But in a couple of months, you're gonna start missing it. And, it's rough. But
I mean, you guys all just crush with the info too. I mean, it's hard freaking work doing it every day especially with college football. Because those of you that don't watch it during the year, you just can't get the info you get with the bigger sports. Like you got to be looking at beat writers from Toledo that some guy is, who knows if he's actually there, if he's just messing around with you, all the absolute nonsense that other sports don't have to deal with that. And if you get it wrong, like we both have a lot of members that count on you guys. If you're somehow wrong and a bunch of people lose money because of it, there's not a worse feeling. We're all hard on ourselves. We want to help each other win money, and you take and it also goes the other way though. There's nothing better than when you have info out there and someone wins a lot of money because of what Bruce or what these guys say. So, I mean, I want all three of them to get a lot of credit because it's awesome what they do.
Bruce and I have been shit talked before for getting inside information from watching a publicly recorded podcast. So, no, it's even one thing too, is like, there's only so much information one person can catch. I'm sure Bruce knows this as well as we do. Like, I can't listen to every single pregame radio show of every team every weekend. So, like, if you have different avenues to potentially catch bits and pieces of information, like one piece of information from each source over the course of the year pays for that source. It's not like NFL, where like if you show up to anyone's NFL product and everybody knows every bit of information that there is. College football, like if Bruce has a work event and he's not there to listen to a radio show and we catch it, it helps you. Same thing if we are unavailable and Bruce catches something we don't catch. Like if you catch one of those pieces of info like that nobody else has, it's a massive, massive leg up on the competition for that given day. It pays for everything that you put in for the whole year. So it's a big effort grind, and there's very few people that work anywhere near the level we all do.
Yeah. Also want to shout out Micah Bedard and Andy Smith, who helped out our team this year. Really, really glad to have them on board. Having them do some content and contribute certainly helps with the workload, balance things out. So definitely was fun having them aboard and building out our content. So definitely appreciate them and everyone who's subscribed to, both just keeping college sports relevant in DFS, because I think it's a really fun game.
It's the best.
Yep.
College football is the best fantasy sport. I didn't know that you had. I love the articles that Andy does.
Andy's article today is really good.
I know. What's his screen name? I know him by his screen name.
A25.
Texas A&M, right?
Yeah.
That guy always did good articles at RG. Yeah. I didn't even actually realize that.
He only did. This is the first one he did all year. He's definitely super busy.
Check it out then. I always like this stuff.
Yeah, he has a lot going on, but he's been helping out a little bit behind the scenes here and there. So
his articles are awesome, though. He goes into deep. I'm sure it's the same as RG, right? With the targets and the breaks down each section.
Yeah, dude out there has more kids than all of us on this show combined, and I think all of us know.
How many he got?
Like 50, it feels like. Like, dude,
I think it's like 5 or 6. Yeah,
dude just pops them out. And I'm like,
5 or 6.
I got one, and I'm like tapping out. I'm like, I'm good.
I officially tapped out, so I'm definitely done with 3. So, well, all righty, guys. Thanks a lot for coming on. Thanks everyone for watching this year. Let's pick some winners tonight. Let's finish with a couple big hits, maybe some prop winners. But thanks for hanging out. We'll see you guys next season.